Today's AskReddit post. Have you ever witnessed a genuinely nice person get backstabbed for no apparent reason? What happened? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. George, nice guy at a hardware store I used to shop at. He liked being busy and wasn't a big talker, so while the rest of the people at the store were standing around gossiping or on their phones, George would be straightening shelves, sweeping, etc. He was also very good about explaining DIY stuff to folks and was always helpful in pointing out the safest way to do something or giving you tips to save money. He worked there over 20 years and was the first guy fired in the recession because the manager thought George was too nice to resent being fired. George went to work at competitor in the next town, and once word got out that George was over there, half of the store's business followed him. That hardware store is now a walk-in clinic. Edited to add, thanks everyone. As a brief follow-up, George retired a few years ago and moved to AZ or NM. His father and my grandfather were good friends, and George graduated HS with one of my uncles. Was in the Navy during Vietnam. I actually didn't know George knew my family until my uncle's funeral in 2014. The last time I saw him. That's when I found out that that really nice guy who used to work at the hardware store knew most of my mom's family. My grandfather bought a riding lawnmower from George in 1985. A lawnmower that is still being used. Similar story working at Home Depot. The garden center manager was honestly the nicest guy I'd ever met. Just a kindly old grandpa who loved gardening and would help anybody anytime. After 10 plus years, they axed him for his name tag being on wrong. Real reason, HD offers a generous health insurance plan, but doesn't actually like people using it. They were systematically firing anyone on it, and his wife was just diagnosed with cancer. Corporate decided they'd rather pay his unemployment than pay for their meds. Oh yeah, I worked for them back in 2016 to 2018. Fear the ducking devil. All of a sudden, I really want to go shop at Lowe's. Edit. No, I don't envy them. Lowe's is not any better. I did my time there, too. I found out a colleague hadn't applied for a big promotion, so I asked why she had shown a lot of interest in the past, having covered the position quite enthusiastically. She told me that she had been off for a few weeks and on her first day back had given another colleague a lift home, massively out of her way. It was common knowledge in the office the vacancy was coming up and we were just waiting for HR to open up applications, so whilst driving it came up, but the other person said that applications hadn't opened yet and they hadn't heard anything about the role in a while. Applications closed the following day, and I know for fact the person who denied knowing about the vacancy had already put their own application in a few days before. My colleague missed out on the role and we all learned there was a snake in the office. What's worse is the petty asshole never stood a chance of even getting an interview for the role because she was known as lazy and quite argumentative. A woman I taught with, Mary, who was the sweetest, most helpful patient special ed teacher I have ever met, finished her degree and she and I started teaching the same year. She worked miracles with kids everyone else just gave up on. The principal was new to the school and let her go through 2 years of new teacher probation and let her think she was getting a continuing contract. He ousted her because he had final say on non-renewal and because she was probationary. He didn't have to provide a justification. The justification was that he installed a 25-year-old leggy blonde teacher from his former school. She hated kids. My cousin is genuinely one of the nicest people I have ever had the privilege of knowing. She is an elementary school teacher who apparently kicks butt at teaching too because she has won numerous teaching awards. Her husband lost his job in the recession and that's when she said he turned into a different person. He ended up cheating on her, claiming he was driven to it because my cousin is infertile. She begged him to see a couples counselor. He agreed. She set up and did all the work to get the appointment, even though he was unemployed and the one that cheated. The morning they were supposed to go, he gave her divorce papers. She was crushed. Good news is, more than a decade on she is doing better than ever. Has met a great guy that worships her. The guy has a son and they all get along great with the boyfriend's ex-wife. They all even celebrate holidays and vacation together. She deserves every drop of happiness. Nice. A happy ending. I'm glad she met someone who deserved her. My little niece at 5 years old asked her mother to stop the car and let her rescue a turtle in the middle of the road. While they were standing patiently by the roadside waiting for traffic to clear, a couple of teenage boys aimed for the turtle and ran right over it in front of her. She cried for a long time. I know it was just a turtle, but to intentionally hurt and horrify a little girl just trying to help a fellow creature is sick. I hope those boys have matured by now. Maybe having kind little girls, or boys of their own. Judge a person by the way they treat those with nothing to offer them. The way people treat animals most of all. Literally one of my favorite things in the world is saving box turtles. I usually get to save 2 for a year in the springtime when they're on the move. I got a summer treat last week and got to save one just last week. It was awesome. I've helped 3 box turtles and 1 snapper this year so far. First year I've seen a snapper on the road ever. I used to work with this girl who honestly is one of the top 5 nicest people I've met in my life. She really did love this job too and cared about it. She actually had 2 jobs where she started at 4 AM for one of them, and the other job, the one I was at, ended at 10-11 at night. After all this she'd give me rides home too cause I didn't have a car yet. One day her sister told her if she had half a brain she'd ask to be a server at our location because she had been working her ass off for basically a year. They're working double shifts every day. Not only did management not let her be a server once she quit, another girl who came a month before she quit ended up getting promoted to server by the end of that month. She was 3 years younger than her and had no experience serving. They just hated her for some reason and I'll never understand it. I'm guessing the new hire was a better suck up than your friend. Some people don't promote employees to better the workplace but to have someone to stroke their own egos. Such a true statement. Probably stroking something smaller than their egos too. I went to a very poor high school. There was a girl who would volunteer to work concessions and baked hundreds of cookies to sell and raise money for girls' athletics. As she herself played 3 sports over her 4 years, she had to have raised over $1,000. Her senior year, she was a manager for the volleyball team, having been a starter the year before. I assumed she was injured and asked when she would be able to play again. I was shocked to hear she had been cut from the team. No one knew why, but you could tell she was heartbroken. Maybe she just wasn't very good at volleyball. I played softball with her so I know she was very coordinated athletic. I can't say she was the best at volleyball, but considering the team rarely won any games, none of them were stellar. As I said, she was a starter on the JV team, which was essentially made up of the same people as the varsity team the next year. The only other senior girls who were cut had never played before. So it was just very odd, especially since she was one of the tallest people. I never met anyone who thought she deserved to be cut. High school athletics can be really weird about stuff like that, especially girls' sports. My sister played soccer on a very good competitive team outside of school, and after playing on the C team for the school her freshman year decided she didn't like how the school ran the girls' soccer program and didn't continue. Although she never said anything overtly about it, just quietly left. She did go out for the volleyball team and found out through the grapevine the athletics director was so mad she quit soccer he had her blacklisted from the volleyball team even though she was good enough to at least make JV. She went out for the soccer team again her senior year and was told that she wasn't on the same level as the rest of the team. Despite the entire varsity starting lineup being all the same girls she was on the starting lineup within her outside team. What was really eye-opening was the athletics director didn't give a shit about the dance team, so she went out for that and made it. Her senior year one of the cheerleaders joined and was amazed at how differently those 2 programs were treated. Dance had to beg for the money for a bus and hotels when they made state and had to pay for all of their other costs 100% on their own. Our cheerleaders did no competitions and were pretty okay. They were pretty popular girls who led chants at football games basically, and they got all their camps paid for, uniforms paid for, and handwritten notes from the athletics department welcoming them to the team stating how happy they were to have them. And that's what you missed on our Glee. This is basically the plot the writers tried to create but failed. My roommate's long distance relationship wasn't going very well, so she lied to him and told him she was pregnant. He's very gullible and being a dad is probably his #1 goal in life. So he was super excited, and then he found out she was having twins. Dude was already looking for babysitters, but then the due date passed and he hadn't heard from her. He called and sent lots of messages, and really began to worry that she'd had some sort of emergency. 2 weeks after his twins were due, he decided enough was enough and drove all the way out there to see her in person. My poor gullible roommate thought he was about to meet his twins, but nope. Not only was he not a father, but his girl had lied to keep him around while she was seeing another guy. It broke his heart. Here he was about to become a father to 2 perfect little babies, and then all of a sudden they never existed. TLDR, my roommate's long distance girlfriend told him she was pregnant with twins, but when the due date came, she disappeared. She was never pregnant and he was crushed because he loved all 3 of them. OMG, that is so ducking wrong. The poor guy must have been crushed. I can't imagine how mean that is. I mean, this ain't a small thing. It must have been like hell. 1 second you are imagining scenarios with your newborn and the next second you find out they never existed. That's so ducking evil. I hope that girl is suffering because of this wherever she is. RN. She deserves to pay for this. Karma will do its work. In my experience, karma's kinda lazy. Knives and tires aren't though. Only slice 3 tires so insurance doesn't pay for it. In high school we had a genuinely great IT teacher. Just a swell guy who was good enough at teaching, but what made him excel so much is his down-to-earth attitude. He treated us like mature adults, with respect. In his class the students and him were on the same talking level. None of that "I am a teacher, you're the students" bullcrap. He just had a sort of treat people the same way you wish to be treated attitude, and everyone loved him. He had to leave because the school higher-ups were duckin' horrible and liked the screamy hag type of teachers more. And he constantly had disagreements with them over issues I've mentioned above. As far as I know, he became loved in the next school he went to as well. But I feel like he's disappointed in me because I was always his favorite and I didn't talk to him once he left. I hate Facebook. Maybe see if you can find a school email to reach out. A good friend of mine got cheated on by his girlfriend after they were together for over 3 years. He was the best to her. He literally would empty his bank to get her things and she was obviously leeching off of him. He was so nice to her though. Sadly, after that happened to him he changed and became an asshole himself. It's how alcoholism reproduces itself. My dad literally supported his family after moving to America for years. He sent money to his dad and stepmother, plus paid for his half-siblings' education, despite barely scraping by in the US. Fast forward to today, and all but one of them are doing super well financially. None of them showed up to my mom's funeral or did anything to offer support to my dad. Despite overcoming incredible abuse from his stepmother, I was still never allowed to call her out on it and always told to look at things from her side, which was not justifiable in any way. Yeah, people will never think twice about taking advantage of or using you for something, but soon as their needs are settled, you're less than shit. I am sorry this happened to you and your family. I once made a small, but fairly popular Instagram fishing account so my friends and I could share all of our fishing pictures. I was the one who made the account and did most of the posting. Put in all the work to get it where it was. One day I find that my password isn't working on the account, and I can't log in. Turns out my friends decided that they didn't like how I was posting everything and wouldn't put up pictures from their hunts. I'm not a hunter, and the page was for fishing, and decided they would change the password and not tell me, and completely rebrand the page. I'm still upset about this, because I put so much work into it. I'm sorry. I hope you find better friends. Must be absolutely heartbreaking. Would highly recommend starting another page as a screw you to all of them and so you can still enjoy your fishing. Melvin and Marjorie had been married 40 years and looking forward to a comfortable retirement when Melvin told Marjorie God had called him to be a missionary in the Philippines. Marjorie, being a good Christian, supported her husband's decision, bought him luggage and drove him to the airport as a good wife does. Melvin wrote emails every day talking about his ministry and how things were going and asked Marjorie to send him money occasionally. Months passed this way and soon it was time for Melvin to come home. And he did. With a new 18-year-old bride. As it turns out, Melvin had divorced Marjorie in secret by forging her names on a do-it-yourself divorce kit and filing it with the court. Marjorie defaulted, of course, and the divorce was finalized without her ever knowing. So when Melvin returned from the Philippines, he dropped the bomb that not only had they been divorced for a year and a half, but he now had this new wife and Marjorie would need to move out of the house and into another, which he graciously agreed she could have, and the divorce she never knew about. Coldest thing I've ever seen. I don't get how this could not lead to some legal issues for him down the road. Did anything bad happen to him? I agree. I think she can easily prove that she was not aware of the divorce proceedings. Given the emails they would exchange and the money she sent him, why would she want to cancel the divorce? She would not cancel the divorce, but she could prove that he was actually cheating on her and forging her signature on official documents, and she could therefore keep the house or something. Teach the MF a lesson. My wife was always a fun, outgoing person, especially in her teen years. She just liked relaxing on the beach, surfing, campfires and dancing. Even when people were mean to her, she isn't mean back, which of course had its own issues. One time she went camping with a Mormon youth group, camping at the beach, which was and is her favorite thing to do, being it was Mormon and in the western states there is a large population of Polynesian members. She got back to her tent after eating dinner around the campfire and was completely exhausted, and 3 Tongan girls had filled her entire sleeping bag with dead, rotten fish and seaweed. They were waiting near her tent and laughed at her when she found it, asking her what she was going to do about it. Just like classic bullies. Nothing was done to these stupid pieces of shit for this. It devastated my wife and she stopped going to beach parties with the LDS church. Since this never happened to her during a normal beach party where people are literally there just to have fun and crash. Wherever they are right now, I hope they are ducking miserable and missing half of their faces. Why half? So they can see how hideous they are. I respect your way of thinking. I totally stole it from the Princess Bride, and I am damn proud of it. A genuinely good older Roman Catholic priest was falsely accused by a former parishioner of molesting him back when the accuser was an altar server numerous years ago. The parishioner later withdrew his charge, claiming that he was unclear in his thinking because of troubled dreams that had no basis in reality. Sadly, the priest's otherwise sterling reputation was sullied for no legitimate reason. I had that happen once to the brother of a guy I used to date. He was a priest in a church when the sex abuse cases first broke, and some random arsehole decided to make up a story about her kid getting abused after the church started making payouts in court cases. Neither this person nor her child had ever set foot inside of this church or ever met this man. And they were both pretty ducking stupid and couldn't keep their stories straight or believable. So it fell apart pretty quickly. Yet of course there were people who just didn't care. That fact that the accusation was made against someone that they weren't going to like anyway was reason enough to consider him a pedophile. I'm not Roman Catholic and the guy I dated hadn't been in a long time. But it still made me really angry. It's insulting both to genuine victims and to innocent people being accused. When someone sees a scandal break and just thinks I see fast money to be made here. My mom allowed my sister and her alcoholic husband to stay with us in our already cramped house with 3 teens and my sister and IBC. They got kicked out of his parents' house for being disrespectful. My mom has brain cancer and it's affected her memory. She cannot make new memories. They would say things like, oh don't worry, she won't remember, or just do it and tell her you told her but she forgot. I don't remember ever being that red-eyed before. The real kicker was after all of that, my sister's husband did not allow anyone to touch my niece for the first month she was living there, even though he hurt her while drunk. Fuck that dude. I'm still trying to learn to forgive my sister. Don't treat my mother like shit. Period. How is your mom doing now? What happened with your sister and her husband? My mom is doing better now. My sister is still living at the house with my niece, overstaying her welcome. She and her husband are divorced and he's absent from my niece's life. Please look out for your mom. Your sister using her memory issues to take advantage of her is abuse. Not saying that your sister is actively doing that now, but from your story it sounds like it could happen. Bro, you actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.